It's a long story, but I will ask. One of the main things was back when I was young, people didn't talk very much about divorces, and in my family especially. So when I was growing up, I didn't know if I had a father or not. And when I'd ask questions about him, when I could ask questions first started, no one would answer any of my questions. So I just stopped asking. And I had a memory, one of the things that happened in our marriage was when Robert would reject me in any way, the pain was so tremendous that one time we were traveling in a car going about 70 miles an hour, and when I'd reach out to him, because of the spiritual warfare in our family that we both brought in, the strongholds, I couldn't stand the pain because he would think I was trying to control him by needing him so much and trying to control him, that I tried to open the car door just to relieve the pain. It was so severe. And of course, an angel or whatever, God didn't let me open the door. And I asked God then, I had come into a relationship with him, and I asked him, I knew that the situation was painful that I was going through, but not that painful. And I knew there was something more there. So I asked him to help me if there was something I needed to remember that would make me that way. And I remembered that even when I would feel rejected by my mother or others, I would run away just to come back and have them hug me. She was not real demonstrative. So this thing was there in my life, and he helped me remember a time in my life. It must have been when I was little, and I heard somebody talking about my father was coming back with his new wife to his sister's wedding, and as a little child, all I could know was I had a father, but I didn't ask any questions because I knew nobody would answer me. And we lived across the street from a church, and I remember going to Sunday school or church or what. I don't remember my age. It was probably about 5, 4, or something like that, and maybe 3, I don't know. And I went to church and saw a stranger, and in my little mind, that was my daddy, because I'd heard he was coming. And I went up to the stranger and hugged him by the legs. And I wish he had just picked me up and said, "Oh, you're precious. I wish I were your father." But he didn't. He just stared at me. And it was no words, no nothing, just complete embarrassment and rejection. And now I can look back on it and see why, with me doing that. But in my little heart, it was something, and I went and hid behind a tree and cried and went home. And Mother was washing the dishes, and she had just seen my father at the wedding with his new bride. So she was heartbroken, and she was crying. And I remembered asking her what was wrong, and she said she'd cut her finger. Well, I knew she hadn't cut her finger. So I identified that with myself, that I had made her cry somehow. It was just all together. And then the next day she was going shopping, and when she was leaving, I was clinging to her because of the rejection and thinking she was leaving because of me. And she needed to go with a friend. As I look back on it, it wasn't her fault, but somebody had to pull me away from her. And so therefore that scar of rejection was there. And I'm laughing, that was painful, but even my cousin had me speak at his church one time, and he was introducing me as his cousin, and I'm sitting there all sentimental thinking, oh, I grew up next door to my cousin, and he had a sense of humor. And he said, "I'd like to introduce my cousin to you." Said she was such a bad little girl that when she moved away we all ran and hid when she came back to visit, so we didn't have to play with her. And I'm sitting there thinking, it's all true when he introduced me. And the reason I'm saying all of that is all of that comes a lot of times from not having a father there, or someone that you can depend on, or that will sit you on their lap and say, I love you, you're my little girl. There's a lot of pain that can come, and that's not any amount of pain compared to what others that have been abused have gone through. But I remember trying to perform to be loved, and I couldn't do it. I was precocious, and I wanted attention, and because of that, I get a lot of spankings, so I would lie, not get a spanking. And I thought, I can't obey those 10 commandments, so God will never love me like a father. And I gave up. And about 9 years old, I went to a Sunday school class, and I'll never forget the teacher saying that God loves sinners. And I knew I was a sinner, and for the first time in my life, I knew I was loved, for somehow God's Spirit just spoke to my heart. And even though I was, quote, a bad little girl, the mother used to quote, there was a little girl who had a little curl right in the middle of her forehead. And when she was good, she was very, very good. But when she was bad, she was horrid. And I was spanked most of the time. So that hearing of the love of God for a sinner, and then I heard about He so loved that He gave His Son Jesus. And as a young child, I accepted Him. And to have that resting place with a Father that I didn't have to perform for, that loved me and by grace had redeemed me, and that there was nothing that I could do to quench that love. It was just amazing. I had to grow into that, though. It was a battle as I grew into maturity. There's a battle for that.